Episode 393, Rapid Calculations. Mickey glared at them all and roared, "Well, are you idiots finished doing the math or not? Where's the money?" Wait. The students waved their arms, trying to appease him with desperate smiles. "We have to discuss it. It's a lot to coordinate." Yeah, we have to call our banks, make transfers, all that stuff. Another one tried to laugh. It came out like a shriek. Mickey rolled his eyes. "Jeez, you people begged to pay us and now you're dragging your feet. Hey, Sonny, get your watch out. Time them. I want to see how long it takes them to figure out what they're doing." Sonny was the fighter who had drawn his knife on the student. Now he tucked his knife away and produced a watch. He looked down at it blankly, intent on nothing else but keeping track of time. Meanwhile, some of the gang members went into the racecourse office and brought out some chairs. When Mickey saw what they were doing, he glanced back to the car he had arrived in. There seemed to be someone else sitting inside, someone who did not want to reveal their face just yet. At some unseen signal from them, Mickey accepted one of the chairs, settling his broken leg in front of him with a wince. The student who had first offered to pay money was called Ted Young. He was the oldest son of his family and was generally well-liked amongst the students. He wanted desperately to get out of there. So he said to them all in dismay, "We have to figure this out. We just have to." A small group formed around him. They pitched ideas to each other for how to raise the money in frantic whispers. As they spoke, they each kept glancing at Heidi. She seemed calm and unafraid, despite the startling turn of events. "What about you, Heidi? Can you offer anything?" Ted asked her. He had completely given up on his pride at this point. One student tried to do the math on their phone, calculating the number of students there were and how much each would have to contribute to reach their goal of $1 billion. Another commented bitterly, "It's a pretty great trap, you've got to admit. I bet they do this all the time. There's no way we can get out of here without paying." "I know," said Ted. "It's the best way. We can't take on this many people. We have to pay." Some of the students had been holding out hope that someone would come up with a different idea. As more and more of their classmates began to agree that money was the only way out, a feeling of despair settled over the group. They couldn't believe they had gotten stuck in such a horrible situation just for trying to go out and enjoy some horseback riding. Finally, Heidi decided it was time to speak. She had been deep in thought since Ted had asked her if she had any money to contribute. "The thing is," she said, "even if we put together $1 billion right now, what's to stop them from asking for more money? They'll just keep extorting us for more and more. We shouldn't give it to them." Ted quickly gestured for Heidi to lower her voice. He didn't want the gang to overhear what she was saying. "Heidi, what choice do we have?" he whispered back to her. "It's not like we're just giving up all this money for fun. What else are we supposed to do?" "Yeah, there's really no other way," another student chimed in. "We're all on the same side. Why are we arguing? Money is a peaceful way to solve this." Everyone tried to talk past her argument, but privately, they each knew that she was making a valid point. But they were all very afraid of what would happen if they started to argue with one another. They felt they needed to maintain a united front. But Heidi didn't back down. She said, "You're all from famous families in Baltimore, but you're letting them push you around. This compromise is not going to pay off. You were so brave before. What happened? The students stopped whispering their arguments, and from their faces, it was clear that her words shamed them. She was making good points. They wanted to be brave again, but Mickey's return and the sight of all those weapons had shaken them. Ted shook his head. You guys, don't get caught up in your ideals. This is the reality of the situation. We have to deal with it. He didn't care how he looked. He just wanted to survive. Some of the students sided with Ted again, but some of them still felt Heidi had made a good point. She had successfully split the group with her argument. Ted looked around at his classmates nervously. He worried that the gang would get violent with them if they didn't sort this out soon. His classmate Davy was sitting near him. Davy was a big guy, but a bit short on brains. However, he was inspired by Heidi's words and disappointed at how quick Ted had been to surrender to the gang. His face turned a little red, and he said, Heidi's right. We have good reputations and we're throwing them away. We have to do better. I'll call my dad and see what he has to say. Ted panicked and elbowed his friend hard. Are you crazy? Keep your voice down. Davy covered his mouth on instinct, but he wasn't convinced. He was very impressed with Heidi and her bravery, and he wanted to match her. He worried that if word spread around the city that they had just given up and let this gang win, he would never be able to do anything great ever again. He beckoned to the other students. Cover me, he said quietly. I'm calling my dad. The students crowded close to him, surrounding him as he dialed his father's number. There was no need for him to be so cautious. The gang members didn't care if the students made phone calls. They assumed that the students would need to call for help to raise the money. Davy soon got his father on the phone. Dad, my friends and I were at the race course, but this gang showed up. This is their territory. They're asking for a lot of money, and they've all got weapons. Davy winced at the sound of his voice. He sounded like he was whining. He wished he sounded braver. But when his father responded, he sounded anxious and frightened too. What do you mean? Did you mess with a gang? Why would you do that? Mr. March swore angrily. It's like you to go out trying to get into trouble. Why did you get yourself into all that? But Dad... It was too late. His father had already hung up. Davy stared down at his phone in shock. It had never occurred to him that his father would be terrified of the gang too. Now the other students began to panic. Since the gang had done nothing to stop Davy from making his phone call, they figured it was safe to call their parents too. One by one, they called and were scolded by their parents. Ted also tried making a call. His father shouted at him before hanging up the phone.